So I have not been in the narrowband filter game for a while. The last narrowband filters I bought, I'll tell you what I've had. I've had Baader, the 7 nanometer fat ones, bandwidth ones. I think I had a brief spell with an Astronomik, which I thought was rather good. And then someone was selling Astrodon, so Generation 1 Astrodon. And I jumped in and bought those, and those have been pretty good. I mean, they're old, but they're good. And I'm just wondering what's new with narrowband filters. Where should I be looking? I live in London. The view out of my window, I wonder if this is going to work. The view out of my window, yeah, I don't know, can't see very much, but I'm just totally built up. I'm in a white light pollution zone. So narrower the better, potentially. So let's have a chat. Oh, I'm just wondering, how many people are in this discussion now? About 10, and that's fine. That's fine. Endolf, you're here as well. Actually, let's just say hello to everyone. If I can, and this is also good practice for me. Endolf, yes sir, we finally meet face to face. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And yourself?
Good. I've got a feeling you're on the south coast somewhere. Is that right?
I'm near Bristol.
Bristol, right? Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Who else have we got? So only Endolf and Hatman Jew is just in case you guys don't know. Oh, I'm hearing myself now. I wonder why that is. I think someone's got me on speakers, is it?
Juan Manuel, I think that's you.
Yeah, it was Juan Manuel. Yeah, okay. Thanks for turning him off. So Hatman Jew has, in the last 2 weeks, joined the Big Amateur Telescope and has been a whirlwind of activity and participation, which has been brilliant. Anyone else want to say hello just while we're here? Go on, put your video screen on and I'll say hello. Admiral Octavio, are you going to say hello? Go on.
I'll say hello without the camera because I may or may not have destroyed my webcam.
I know the feeling. Okay. Hi, mate. How you doing? Who else have I chatted to? Who's in here? Gary B. I don't think Gary B exists. He's been here for 2 hours. Gary B, are you alive? Or are you just you've been waiting 2 hours for this stream to start? It started and you're not actually joining in. Anyway, okay. Gary B isn't there. So let's open it out then. What filters should I buy? Anyone? I know you're going to say something, Hatman G. Go on. Kick it off.
All right. I was just going to say that I think probably your first question is whether you're going to do 7 nanometer or 3 nanometer. I'll post in the discussion thread a write-up that I did. I'll just make a really clean. I don't know why my screen is bad, but I'll make a really easy blanket statement. The 7 nanometers are great. I found that the integration time needed to get to a similar result was about half with the 3 nanometer versus 7. And so for me, that's why I went with 3. And I have extensive tests that I did, and I found that the biggest benefit was just to have the integration time I needed for the same signal to noise. At least in the hydrogen alpha and oxygen, not so much in the sulfur.
Awesome. That's really interesting, isn't it? That you halve the, essentially, I guess, by switching from 7 nanometer to 3 nanometer, I'm guessing you're kind of halving the amount of light pollution, in that double 3 is nearly 7. So it's quite interesting that it's a similar sort of ratios to how much extra integration time you needed to potentially get rid of that extra light pollution.
stacks that are in my Dropbox that are posted in that article that I wrote. So they don't. I didn't put them in the screen because you really have to pixel peep them. Like you really have to open them up in PixInsight and zoom in to and blink back and forth to see. But
so I'm just in case people don't know, there's a little channel just above this one. I'm gonna try with the power of OBS to take you there now. There we go, narrowband discussion, and here it is. Hatmanju has just posted his Cloudy Nights, in what he said in Cloudy Nights. So there it is. So you can all go and check that out. And now I'm going to try and come back in the room. Come on, back in the room. Yay! Okay. So I also think going narrow would be good, and I reckon I've got about a bit over $1,000 to play with. So the narrowband filters, the extremely narrowband filters, really opened up a couple of years ago, didn't they? Maybe 3 years ago, when Astrodon. I mean, obviously Astrodon and Chroma have been doing it, but they are super pricey. But then Baader did one, 3.5 or 4 nanometer, was it? Can't remember. And let me just. Sorry, Hatmanju, you're full screen. It must be freaking you out a bit, being full screen all the time. So Baader did a 4 nanometer or 3 nanometer ultra narrowband filter, and I heard the reviews of that weren't that great. As in, you got halos. So my kind of understanding is that unless you pay the big bucks, you're going to get halos, especially around the higher frequency narrowband filters, i.e. basically the O3. So that's kind of blue, on the edge of blue and green. And it seems like that higher frequency of light, filter makers have trouble controlling it, and you get these halos. So I'm just curious to know, does anyone have any experience with the latest Baader ultra narrowband filters or the old narrowband filters? I'll just see if. Oh yeah. So and how are your halos?
So they have been fine. The latest piece of data I got was around the bubble with the new supernova in it, and I got a bit of halo in, a tiny bit of halo in around that, but most of the rest of the image is absolutely fine.
Ooh, are you able to post that? Do you have that picture to hand by any chance? Maybe we could, if you do. I know I'm terrible at keeping my pics in an easy place to get to.
I've got a full res JPEG, but I don't have.
Oh yeah, it'd be too big, wouldn't it? Yeah, don't worry.
What's the size limit?
It's well, for video it's 100 megabyte. I'm not sure what it is for pictures. I don't know whether it's the same or not.
Try it.
Yeah. So how much are those Antlia filters? Okay, I'm gonna do a quick web search for them.
So the 36mm unmounted HA is 341. The O3 is 372. And the S2 is 341 as well. So it's about $1,000 for all three. And
how do you spell Antlia? How do you spell it?
Antlia. I think 365astronomy.com are the UK importers.
Yes. Okay, let's have a look. No, not that. Sorry, I'm just trying to get Chrome coming up. It's not doing it.
In the chat.
Thanks, mate. I found them. Maybe people can look at your link.
It does look as though they might not have stock at the moment.
Yeah, so essentially they're getting on for 300 quid. And the nearest, what are the big boys? The bigger ones, like the Chroma and the Chroma and the Astrodon.
Like eight or 900, aren't they?
So also I'm after 36mm. So my filter wheel is 36. So
I don't know. I do a lot of focusing anyway.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
it won't
same
matter.
here.
It won't matter actually. So I'll show you what I'm using.
Just for reference, Flo's got the Chroma 3nm, 36mm at 729.
Yeah. So this is what I'm using for my narrowband setup. It's a 150. It's a I think it says Helios, but you know it's the Skywatcher 150 ST Star Travel essentially. So it's a achromatic f5 scope, and I'm going to be using it with an old, like, I think they stopped making them 10 years ago, an old Borg 0.7 super reducer, right? So it flattens the image, it reduces it by 0.7, which brings this baby down to about f3 something or other, whatever 5 times 0.7 is. So it's pretty fast. So I did chat actually to a guy from South Africa, and he said that actually, because I'm worried that I'm so fast that some of these ultra narrowband filters are going to struggle to let all the light pass through them, because the angle that the light's passing through them there's quite a relatively steep angle at f3 point whatever it is, and this could cause problems. It might not let all the light through. So I don't know if anyone has anything that they think about this. I'm just going to...
I'm looking it up, but I thought that becomes an issue below f3.
Yeah.
But I'm going to find a citation, because that's from memory.
So I think it's really interesting that because there's one thing on Flow at the moment. There's actually there's some quite you could potentially get cheap S2, couldn't you? Because I don't think even with the crappy low budget filters you have to worry about halos on S2. Probably not hydrogen alpha. I'm guessing. It's really the O3 that perhaps is where you want to spend your big bucks. This is what I'm thinking. Now, the chap from South Africa, whose name I've forgotten, I'm afraid, he said that it's probably not worth getting a 3nm hydrogen filter, H-alpha filter. He said that there was 2 lines, that if you had a 5 or 6nm filter, he said there was, what is it, NA line? Is the NA line very close to the hydrogen alpha filter? He said actually you don't get much benefit, cutting off that NA line. What is it, sodium, is it? Cutting off that sodium line in order to go ultra narrow. He said you might as well stick a bit wider. So I don't know, I just thought I'd throw that out there as well.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I did 3nm in the oxygen and sulfur, sulfur, and then I did the 5nm in hydrogen alpha for that reason. I don't think there are a lot of NA of the targets that have that extra band, like planetary nebula I heard do, but I just figured it wasn't worth kind of risk, and I certainly wasn't going to get to.
Yeah, okay, alrighty. I'm so I'm sort of heading. I think that, essentially, I'm thinking that I'm looking out for a second-hand Astrodon or Chroma, but probably go for the Antlia filters unless someone can show me that the O3 has bad halos. And then I'm going to think maybe I should look at Baader's newer ultra narrowband filter set. I know the old batch, there were problems. I'm just curious about the new batch. Anyway, anyone got any questions?
So
yeah, go on. Yeah, mate.
I've just stuck up the bubble that I took Thursday last week. You can see the halo around the nova on the right hand side there. It's pretty ugly, but the rest of the image isn't bad.
It's a beautiful
halo.
It's beautiful. It's an absolutely gorgeous image. Yeah, so that brighter star just caught him a bit. So
yeah, but it's not the O3.
Ooh. What is it?
I'd have to actually look at the subs. I'm not entirely sure, but the colour of it means it's not the O3. Otherwise, it would be blue.
It looks a bit.
So I'm not.
It looks blue to me. Actually, it's just the one star that looks blue. Actually, isn't it? So if I just move my head out of the way, I'm just over this big star. There's this big star up there. Am I pointing at it? This is.
Yeah. So there's one. Yeah.
And that doesn't have any blue in it at all. Whereas the one there does seem to have blue halo around it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's quite a bright one. I possibly had the gain up a bit too high on that one, because that's also possibly collimation and back focus and things. Also, the one on the right, on the other hand, where the supernova is really ugly.
I mean, it's quite hard to tell, actually, isn't it? Because you could just get a little bit of dew forming on whichever filter it is, and then that's not the filter, but the lens or whatever, as you're shooting, and that'll cause halos as well. Clouds, I guess, high clouds will also do, not help with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's actually,
and it wasn't a particularly clear night.
Yeah, well, there you go. So it's actually really hard to tell, isn't it? But it's a beautiful shot.
And that's the first image I've had since I changed over to the 3 nanometer. I had the 3.5 nanometer O3 in there before.
Was that the
so I haven't got any.
One?
No, it's the Antlia again. But when I originally got this camera and those filters back in January, the 3 nanometer O3 wasn't in stock. And I was impatient, so I got something. So I've only got the one image with the 3 nanometer O3 filter so far.
Yeah. So are these Antlia filters really the ones that everyone is going for right now? Unless you want to pay 2-3 times more and get Chroma and or Astrodon. Is the word on Nerd Street Antlia filters is the way to go?
I don't think they're hugely popular, but it was the only way I could afford 3 nanometer filters.
Yeah, I'm curious to know. Is anyone here using the Baader? Ooh, Hatman Jew's got a beautiful picture. Actually, just seen it. What were you using for that?
The reason I wanted to show this is that, like, for super bright stars, and this is with Astrodon filters, 3 nanometer, so you can see there's some haloing even in the O3 channel. So
yeah.
For me, it was more about like SNR and integration time. Like, it does reduce the halos. Like, these I've seen much worse.
So
the halos tend to be mildly asymmetrical, so they're kind of hard to mask out. I really tried.
Yeah, it's a pain.
But they're not a panacea.
Yeah. So did the 3 nanometers do better with the halos than presumably you've just got Astrodon 3 nanometers. You haven't tried like Astrodon 5 nanometers and compared them in any way. You've compared.
Well, there was the people at Chroma started like doubling their price because I guess they were, spending time building PCR filters for COVID detection or whatever, and so the prices started going up. So I just, panic bought. I just bought them instead of like doing a bunch of testing.
Yeah.
I did the testing afterwards. So
yeah. So That's interesting. Just curious to know if anyone else has got any filters that they like or don't like. Narrowband filters. Any more?
Hey guys.
Hey.
Hey, I got the 5 nanometer and the 3 nanometer Astrodons.
Alrighty.
And the threes definitely are better.
Do you still have your kidneys?
I have a quarter of a kidney left at this point.
Yeah, it's really, you need lots of kids, don't you? Really, to properly afford those, then you can use all their cell. Anyway, so perhaps that's a bit mean doing that. So, what about the hydrogen? Do you prefer the 3 nanometer hydrogen or the 5 nanometer hydrogen, which gets, as we mentioned already, the sodium emission line as well?
That is an excellent question, and I really would have to say I almost like the 5 better.
Interesting.
But that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I have the 3 on the TAC, and I got the 5 on the Mead, and the stars are sharper with the 3 as you would expect, but you get more data with the 5, so there's that trade-off.
Interesting. I mean, I think 5. I think the slightly larger bandpass for hydrogen is where I'm heading right now, which actually brings me to the Astronomik narrowband filters, because I had one for a while. I was really impressed with them because they have such a high transmission rate. Like, I bought some second-hand Astrodon that were first generation, and the amount of light that went through at the particular narrowband wavelength, I don't know, it wasn't, I don't know whether they guaranteed how much light went through or not, but I know in generation 2, Astrodon are now guaranteeing that you get some high percentage, up in the 90s, passing through. Whether it's with their generation 1 filters, I'm not sure. It was either not at the same level or they couldn't guarantee it. But what I liked about Astronomik is, okay, they're 6 nanometers wide, but they guarantee quite a high level of the light passes through in that bandwidth, right? And that's something that Baader didn't do either. So I actually felt like Astronomic filters were quite good, and possibly I'd get the hydrogen alpha Astronomic at 6 nanometer. Don't know. Go on.
I've got those in my ASI 1600, which I'm about to replace. And I think it is difficult to compare the two because it's very different cameras they're attached to.
Yeah.
But I've got another 268 turning up tomorrow.
Ooh.
So I'll be able to transfer those filters straight across because they're both 36mm. And I did ages ago, I don't know whether I still got the data, I did some tests of, I think it was 5-minute subs of the ZWO 7 nanometer, the Astronomic, can't remember what bandpass it was, probably the 6, and something else. I'll see if I can dig out the data.
But I mean, I'm guessing that you thought the Astronomic were quite good. Is that right?
Yeah, I did have problems with them in my reflector. So I was getting weird, I think it was probably reflections,
yeah,
but I'm not sure.
Yes, I had that once actually. That's another thing to consider, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it was between the filter and my Baader MPCC.
Yeah, so it was bouncy. So what I think happens, and I'll just say this for other folks, is the light comes in. Obviously a lot of the light goes through, but some of the light will reflect back and hit what elements you've got. Like your coma corrector, for instance, on a reflector. And particularly if not all the light, particularly if the bandpass doesn't have very steep sides. If it's slightly more, if it's slightly less sort of definite about letting a photon pass or not, then that light can reflect, bounce off the chroma corrector, and then go back in again. And of course, that light is bounced around a bit, and it causes nasty reflections on your images. So that is something else to consider as well, actually. Yeah. So that's interesting. So yeah, go on.
I was getting some really nasty. It looked like almost the opposite of. The words escape me now. Vignetting.
Right.
It was almost the opposite of that, where particularly on my flats, I just couldn't get a flat without a really bright circle.
Yeah.
It was quite like the majority of the middle of the image.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. And you haven't had? Have you tried using your Antlia filters with that same reflector?
I have with the reflector, but I have changed the chroma corrector in the meantime. So.
Okay. It's so difficult, isn't it, with this hobby, because there's so many factors that can affect what you're trying to figure out. It's really like I've actually got two of these, right? I'm gonna double up, and it's a perfect opportunity actually to have exactly the same setup all the way down, and then potentially just try out different filters, but I don't have the same camera, annoyingly. But maybe I should. Maybe that should be an Astro Biscuit thing. All right, I'm getting hot in here. I'm going to open the door. So I'm just curious if anyone else... So it's looking like now I'm going Antlia all the way. Do Antlia do 5 nanometer hydrogen alpha filters?
No, I've only seen the 3 and the 3.5, and the 3.5 didn't have a very good reputation. The 3.5s, they did end up with a lot of halos, which is part of the reason they introduced the new filters.
So I'm just curious to know, has anyone here had the Baader narrowband, ultra narrowband? Anyone? We got anyone who's had them?
Yes, hello.
Hello. Is that
Good
Paranoid?
evening.
Oh, Kublai.
Oh, it's Kublai, George. Nice to meet you.
Hey, didn't I just before you delve into this, didn't I just mega nerd you today?
Yes, thank you for that.
Well done. You have taken some astonishing images. I particularly like the one that's on your, like, in whatever you call it, the thumbnail thing that you've got. That shot you did of the veil was absolutely magnificent.
I like it as well. The Pickering had some incredible details in it, and it's with astronomic filters.
You used the Astronomik, right? Did you have any problem?
I used the Astronomic.
Yeah.
Actually, I've changed three model of filters in this year.
Go on.
I used the ZWO, the variant 2. Which, to be honest, it's a pity that I renounced on them because they were really brilliant. They are far better than the first variant, and in terms of price point of view, they're unbeatable, really. If you will ask me today to buy new filters, I will go with the ZWO, but variant 2, very important.
Yeah.
The ones that were built after 2018. They solved almost all the strange reflection issues that they had. Then I used the Baader. I got them from a friend as a rental. I didn't like them, especially with my fast Newtonian, 4.5 Newtonian. Really strange halos around bright stars. And then I stick with Astronomic.
Sorry, which particular Baader filters did you go for? The regular, like 7, 8 nanometers?
Regular. 7 nanometers.
Yeah.
The regular ones.
Yeah.
I shot only HA.
Yeah.
But really strange halos around bright stars. And then I switched to Astronomic, and they are a good compromise. And something that I really loved about them is the customer service. Really unbelievable.
Awesome.
I sent one back on CLS CCD, which I bought from TS. I didn't like it because it had some strange halos on it, and I really sent it back. That's it. They sent me a brand new one without any cost. This was a treat for me because you pay a lot of money on some filters, and you don't know if you have any warranty or not. But with Astronomic, I was confident. So that's why my entire line of filters right now is Astronomic.
And so I wonder if I can get your shot up. I wonder if I dare risk going into deep space. I'm not very good at Discord. That's my problem. Here we go. I wonder if I can find you. Maybe if I find...
It's a bit easier. If you click my my name, you will have the link to my Astrobin account, and you will have them all.
Yeah, but
lately I shot only narrowband because I live in about Bortle 5.
So I'm gonna in danger of putting everyone to sleep. Could you just spell your name out for me?
Yeah, Kublai. K.
Yeah,
U.
Okay.
B.
Right, here
L.
we go. I'm hoping that it'll come up
Yeah,
very
I
soon.
was in Portal 5.
Is that it? Was this the shot? You've actually got...
No, that's the last one.
You
I
did...
shot it live here. Actually here on Discord.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here
know.
it is. Look at that. It's amazing, isn't it? Look at that. So if that was with the Astronomic filters...
Yes. HA and Oxygen 3.
And they're 6 nanometers apart. Are you...
Yes.
What Bortle do you live in?
5.
5, okay. So I'm...
5 to 6-ish.
Yeah, so I'm like... I mean, I really am just... I mean, I can hear the guys cheering from Arsenal Football Stadium where I live. It's proper white zone, and I'm a bit north of the very centre of London. I look south, so it's just... I think 6 nanometer is going to be too broad for me. I think I'll get a massive benefit from going narrower than that. But just out of interest, though, would you rate the new ZWO Generation 2 filters as good as your Astronomik filters?
To be honest, yes.
Wow.
Definitely.
Wow.
And so if I take the entire filter range, if I take the LRGB, the ZWO are better than Astronomic. Astronomic has a pretty strange orange tint to them, so the red is not exactly red. In this case, Astronomic, it's perfect. And if I will get a new wheel today, and I will need to fill it up, I'll go for ZWO, because from the cost point of view, they are unbeatable. Awesome,
George. Absolute pleasure hearing you, and it was nice to meet you actually. I was really interested to know, and I'm definitely going to put that on my website, recommending ZWO Generation 2. But I think for the darker skies where the Bortle 9 where I live, I think I'm going to go narrower, and I'm still tempted by the Antlia, which are 3 nanometer. Possibly not for hydrogen alpha though. I might go for something else with hydrogen alpha.
Another quick tip for filters. I had for some time a combination between ZWO, narrowband in Astronomic, and I had also an IDAS from HuTech. And it was a huge mess. Try to figure out the offset filters and combine everything with an OAG. That was the reason.
Yes. That's such a good point. That's such a good point. I haven't even thought of that. So, let me... Sorry, you finish off, and then I'm going to go off on one about that. I'm so glad you mentioned it.
So, my advice, go for one brand with the same thickness. They need to be parafocal, and go for one line. Will make your life easier on the long run.
Yeah, so I'm going to have an off-axis guider here. In front of my filters. The RGB that I've got in here are actually Astronomik, because there were some cheap ones on Flow in special offer, and they weren't actually the deep sky RGBs. So the Astronomik, and I think quite a few companies do this, in order to help people in light polluted areas, their RGB filters actually cut out a bit of the sort of orangey yellow. So the green filter doesn't kind of bump up right against the red. There's a bit of a gap, which presumably helps reduce sky glow that you get from city lights and stuff, right? But yeah, well, Astronomik do, but then they have another version which is just pure classic RGB, right? Which doesn't have any of that going on, which I guess is better for planetary. And that's what I've got in here because they were cheap. And I think RGB, I'm not so worried about RGB. But that point about having the, so it doesn't matter for me. So I was thinking, you know what? I can mix and match with my narrowband filters because I'm using an achromatic telescope anyway. So I'm going to have to refocus. I'm going to have to refocus between my oxygen and my hydrogen because it's achromatic, so the focus point is going to be slightly different. And that's not a problem because if I'm shooting O3, I just shoot all night O3, so it doesn't bother me at all. But I had not thought about the off-axis guider, which of course, if the filters are a different thickness, then the light is going to, effectively, the thicker your filter, it's as if the light is passing through less space. It has the same effect. So if your filters are different thicknesses, then that affects the focus point. But because the off-axis guider is before my filters, and I need to keep my off-axis guider in focus, if I have different thicknesses of filters, then my off-axis guider will go out of focus on at least one of the filters, maybe more. So that was a really good point. Yeah.
I have your setup, exactly your setup, and that's happened. So I resolved with parafocal filter, so you don't need to refocus when you switch C filter.
Yeah, but that's the point. You need parafocal filters, and the same brand, they are parafocal. So if you get all the ZWO, they are fine, or all Astronomic or all Baader.
That's right.
How important is the focus with an OAG? 'Cause I don't use one. I just got a guide scope, and I know with the guide scopes they often say that it doesn't actually need to be exactly in focus.
So
it depends. Go on, but I know I can see you want to say something, George. Go ahead,
yeah,
and then I will.
The focusing of OAG was a real nightmare. Without the helical focuser that the ZWO is providing as an accessory, you are by far not able to make the focus by hand, or just lowering or lifting up the small prism. By no means. If you move 1 millimeter, you are way off. You cannot see any stars any longer.
George,
so it's extremely difficult.
Are you a plant from ZWO? Have you come here to tell? So I'm George. I'm going to ask you, how fast is your scope?
Well, I have two. I have a 4.5 Newtonian and then 8 f8 Ricci Chrétien from an RC8.
And
I also use it.
What is your guide camera?
Guide camera is an ASI 290.
Ooh, okay, right.
I'm using the same one, also with an off-axis girder, and I honestly don't have any problems focusing on them.
Alex doesn't have any problems. I actually, so when I'm narrowband imaging, I've got quite a fast scope, f3. I use a 120 mm, you know, the planetary camera. It's got a slightly bigger chip, I think, than the 290. And I do the whole by hand thing, pushing up and down and getting it into focus, and it seems to work okay.
Yeah, me too.
When I had the reason I asked about what your focal, the questions that I did was when I had an SCT at f10, right? The stars were so much dimmer at f10, and also you're kind of like zoomed in more, so the what's hitting your guide scope sensor is much less of the actual, physically less of the sky. With that, I found focusing really important, and also I'd have to, you know, rotate shit around in order to find a guide star. But now I don't seem to have a problem now at all. And and as to how critical is the focus, so I am actually, unlike George, I'm like, yeah, how critical is it? Is a tiny little bit off, am I still going to be okay? Because when you go out of focus, you do lose stars, right? The fainter stars disappear. But is there still going to be enough bright stars, and obviously it depends how out of focus you go, left for me to guide on? So that, yeah.
Which software are you using? Are you using multi-star guiding?
So, oh gosh, you got me now, because I actually haven't even done, no. But bear in mind that I haven't done any imaging for ages. So the last time I was imaging in anger was in that field for 700 versus $7 million scope, right? And I just, you know how stuff cocks up in astrophotography? I just didn't want anything to cock up, so I just kept it with the same old version of PhD, which just locks onto one star. I just had enough things to cock up. You know, I didn't need to add that to the list. And since then, it's been summer or cloudy. And so I'm only, really, the season is just kicking off for me now. Well, it should have kicked off this weekend, but I was away, so I couldn't. So, yeah, or basically I'm a bit crap, but I haven't. No, I'm doing the single one. But go on.
Well, I was just thinking, if you're multi-star guiding, then the focus might be less important than if you're only single star.
Really?
Because it's got more stars to choose from. So if some of them go out of focus, then it's still got others it can pick.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's just going to, when I change my filter, so basically when I narrowband, I kind of do it on one filter all night long, right? So it would know which, and I'd tell it to go for probably one of the brightest stars in the field of view. Unless, of course, it meridian flipped, then it might choose it by itself.
If you don't change your filters during the night, you're fine. You don't care. You focus it manually once, and that's it.
No, not quite. Because this is what happens. I set it up one night, right? Say hydrogen alpha, right? And Mrs. Biscuit gets really annoyed with me because I spend ages dicking around and I haven't helped do anything with the kids or made tea or anything like that. And I say, wonderful, beautiful Mrs. Biscuit, you are so wonderful. Tomorrow I will definitely help with all that stuff, right? And the reason why I think I can help with all that stuff, assuming it is clear the next night, is because because my off-axis guider is in focus, right? If I change filter and then my off-axis guider goes out of focus, right? You know what happens. It's a snowball of calamity that ends up meaning that I can't then make dinner or do whatever it is. And I just, my life becomes not worth living. So when you change filter, you would have to refocus the off-axis guider, and I don't have a helical focuser, and anyway, it's just another thing to do, isn't it? Sort out focusing your off-axis guider. I find it quite fiddly, actually, particularly as I've got a wobbly roof, and I have to change focus and then come back inside, check it, and then, oh no, it's not quite right, go out again, turn it. So it's like...
One...
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to throw out there. Somebody told me that the thickness of the glass on the filters is the most important thing, and even though it won't be perfectly parfocal, like that is 80-90% of that parfocal contribution, and so that might be another thing to consider if you were thinking of multiple brands. But I don't know if anybody else has experience with different brands, same glass thickness.
I can confirm it. I have an L Pro that I'm testing on a replacement as a luminance filter, and it's the same thickness of the Baader of narrowband filter, and is this? I don't need to change focus. The star remain very near about the same size, like 2.2 instead of 2.3, and both of them are 3 millimeter thick.
Awesome.
And one is another brand. Totally different.
So that's really good to know, and that's a really good point. Thank you, folks. Izzy. How do I say your name? IZE.
Antonio.
Antonio. That's a funny spelling of Antonio. You're from Italy, I'm guessing. Is that right?
Yes, Italy.
Awesome. So, you mentioned Optolong filters. I was super impressed with the Optolong L Extreme. Is that right? Is that the Optolong one? And I was just surprised that a company that I thought of as a cheap company had come out with such a great filter. Have you got experience with their narrowband filters? And if so, what are they like?
Before I just switched to monochrome 1 week. Before I was using Oiii with the L Extreme. The filter is beautiful. Under Bortle, I'm shooting from Bortle 7. And under Bortle 7, if you look into my Astrobeam, you can see you get very good results. You still need to deal with gradient, but something that you can deal with just a couple of pass in peaks inside.
But you don't have the Optolong narrowbands, do you?
No, the narrowband are the Baader one. The 6.5 nanometer.
Yeah.
And I can confirm I see reflection also in them. So that is something that I'm still dealing with to understand if it's something that I'm doing wrong or not. But going back to the narrowband, the thing that I didn't like is that the result that you get from the OSC narrowband and the same filter on the monochrome, aside of the pixel density that is different, the channel are not the same. It's like they're blending. So you cannot get an SH the same, let's say, H alpha and O3, even if you split the channel, because there are some bleeding of electron inside it. So you cannot really separate the two.
Sorry, I'm slightly lost. Are you talking about using the duo-band filter with a mono camera?
The L Extreme is a dual band filter, yes.
Are you talking about using that with a mono camera?
No, with the OSC, with the color camera.
Right, okay, yeah, sorry.
And if you split the channel, you don't get the same result of shooting with a mono camera, H alpha and O3.
Yeah. Someone was asking.
It's like the channel is bleeding together, is mixing.
The mono is a lot better, I know that much. It's amazingly much better.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. But I do actually have the Optolong filters.
Yay!
Yeah, so I use the 7 nanometer one.
So your name is 271. Wait, have you got some fancy name? Can you explain that to me? It looks like
I didn't
2 feet 71 inches.
Set it up. It's Richard. Sorry.
You're not Danger then.
No, I didn't set up my name. I just kind of jumped on the Discord and just been hanging out with you guys. So,
and have people been talking to you, or have they been too afraid? Or have they, no. Okay.
Yeah, no, but I've been using the Optolong filters, the 7 nanometer ones, for a while now, and I've been getting pretty good results with them. I just have to be really careful with focusing on the EAF, because I have to use a bin 2 when I'm using doing the V curve, right? And I really have to pinpoint it quite right. But I usually do get some pretty good results with them.
Cool. And how long have you been astrophotographying?
Maybe 9 months.
Awesome.
I've been a photographer for 17 years. So
cool. Well, if you get a chance, do post some of your results in the narrowband discussion above. I'm sure people would love to see. Yeah,
I posted a picture. I think you you said I was mega nerd worthy.
Oh wow. Well.
Yeah, so it was I was like, oh, did I just get knighted or something?
You didn't. It sounds like I was just keeping an eye on you to see whether you're going to develop into a fully fledged mega nerd. We have some mega nerds with us. The two guys you can see on screen are both mega nerds. It's almost like when you become a full mega nerd, you are so powerful and omnipotent. You're able to show people your actual face.
It's just that we've made enough mistakes that we're not embarrassed by them anymore.
Right? I made so many mistakes when I first started doing this, because I started out with the Skywatcher Adventure 2i, And yeah, I was just shooting with DSLR for quite a while actually, and then I remember I just jumped straight to the EQ-R Pro or EQ6R Pro. Yeah, and then I picked up like 3 different.
Richard, I'm tempted to just drag it back to the narrowband topic, if that's okay.
Sorry.
I just feel, although I'm perfectly happy to listen to you tell me about your journey, because we've all been on similar journeys, I slightly worry that maybe people have come here to listen to about narrowband stuff. So, although I don't, obviously I do.
But no,
I do
I
off piece. Optolongs, you think are pretty good.
But I do use actually the.
Could you post your picture?
I use the L Extreme actually on a mono camera.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that's quite interesting. I've actually got the L Extreme I believe it's a duoband filter, so it does a really good job. Something like 7 nanometer bandwidth on hydrogen and O3, something like that kind of ballpark. Now, interestingly enough, I was experimenting with another duoband filter which Astronomik make, which is a O3 and S2 filter. So it gets the oxygen, it misses the hydrogen altogether and gets the S2. So the idea is that you can use this filter to do like Hubble palette with an OSC camera. So one night you'll shoot the hydrogen and the oxygen, and then the next night you'll shoot the sulfur and the oxygen, and then you can do some clever stuff and you can get the Hubble palette. I was actually using it differently. I was trying to use my OSC camera to get oxygen and sulfur while my main camera got hydrogen. With a mono camera, and what I learned was that OSC cameras are nowhere near as good as mono cameras. That was the take home.
Yeah.
But it's interesting using it with a because there is this idea that if you're shooting a narrowband target that's got O3 and hydrogen in, right, and you've got an apochromatic scope, so the light is, so this wouldn't be any good. Because it's achromatic. But if you have a reflector or an apo, then you could, on a mono camera, collect O3 and hydrogen data at the same time, and presumably your signal would be stronger and better for it. It would be almost like a narrowband luminance filter, if you like. I know that doesn't make sense, but you'd get a stronger, deeper signal. So how did it work out?
No, my last picture I posted in Deep Space was with the Optolong and a mono camera.
Oh, do you mind? Could you post it in the narrowband discussion, or we can watch me?
I just posted a couple of pictures in the Deep Space with the L Extreme.
Thanks, Antonio. Danger.
Yeah, let me go jump on my computer.
Or shall I find it? You call maybe I'll find it real quick. Just try not to.
It's on the Deep Space.
Yeah, it's just that I'd like to say I know it was good at using this thingy, whatever it is, Discord. Okay, from. Oh, how am I going to do your name? Is it? What's your? Do you mind?
I got it. Don't worry.
You got it. Cool.
I'm gonna post it real quick. Yeah. Hold
on.
I
have found
you.
So,
where do you want me to post it? Ask a Nerd.
Just one channel above us, right? There's
Oh, okay.
There's this thing called narrowband
discussion. Gotcha.
Yeah. Let's have a look in there.
Gotcha. Give me 2 seconds.
All right, no problem. Anyone else want to continue? Have anything to say, preferably about narrowband? Oh, we're waiting in anticipation. Here we go. I don't think that was the one I think that's a great pick. I don't remember that though. I think it must be one of your others that I thought that I was tempted to mega nerd you with. So this one you used your duoband filter, and what else did you do? Hello?
Oh, that wasn't me. Give me 1 second. I'm looking for my.
Oh, that's easy. That's Antonio, right? Yeah, thought I was getting confused. All right, we're having a. Oh, you can see what's happening. Anyone want to say anything else? We've had an hour, to be honest. I think it's probably nearly time to wrap up, especially as there's exciting things about to happen. For instance, below, 2 channels below us, the community rig is about to kick off, and a chap called Astro is about to take control of the community rig. Now, the community rig is something that a guy called Astroconsti has set up. He's one of our mods. It's a 8-inch Newtonian, and basically anyone from anywhere around the world can control his Newtonian in his back garden. We have a little. He managed to do it for about 800 quid. And we've got a little fund set up to help him to pay him back. I think we're up to about 700 quid, so there's only 100 quid more to go for that. And basically anyone who maybe wants to have a go can get in touch with him, and in a night, perhaps it's cloudy like it is here, you can hop on and control and take pictures with the community rig, and it's actually doing really well. They've got the guiding down to less than 1 arc second, which is awesome considering how much it cost. They've got it collimated to perfection. So that is going to be kicking off any moment, I think. Astro Cookie controlling that. There's also another channel below us, Mr. Shepherd, who's fantastic. I saw him earlier. He's shooting from his balcony somewhere in Germany. So yeah, but I'm not gonna close this down. You up? Yeah, there's a whole gang of them in Bangberg. Philip, I think Weber is also from there. How about you, Alex? Where are you? Okay. Cool. Alrighty. Well, any more for any more? Thank you so much, everyone, for telling me stuff. I think you've posted it. Oh yeah! Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? So just talk us through this image. Oh, sorry, you can't see it. Let me put it here. Look at that. Look at that, everyone. It's just amazing, isn't it? So
that is
cool.
fantastic.
Yeah, so I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's pretty dry climate out here. So, but I live in a Bortle 7, so of course, narrowband pretty much is my one big choice. Yeah, it was the California Nebula, but I finally actually was able to pick up a Quadro 200p, and it's f4, man. So I was like, I just wanted to get like super close with it. So it's been amazing, and I used it with because I bought one of the L Extreme filters for my filter wheel. Yeah, and I spent all night just using it. So I'll have like about a good 6 hours of like the HA and O3 data. And then I spend like about another good, maybe 4 hours the next night just getting like the sulfur data. And yeah, and then I learned in Pixel Insight how to separate the oxygen enough and then kind of create like its own little synthetic layer. And then, then I use that as like the narrowband merging, and I kind of just put them all together,
How did you separate the O3 from the... I mean, that sounds impossible with what you got.
No. So...
You're using an OC, aren't you?
Oh, were you using
it?
Some mono, yeah.
Mono?
Yeah, I'm using a camera, but... So... What's his name? His name is Clev's the Lazy Geek or something. But he's got a YouTube video on how to kind of make these like synthetic layers from like mono data. And it's kind of cool. I mean, so I just kind of changed it a little bit, and then I was able to kind of pull out some oxygen, and it works really well for what I've been doing.
So the image looks absolutely awesome. There's no denying it. I'm just curious. I don't think it's possible if you're using a just a dual band filter and then sulfur filter, I don't think it's possible to actually pull out the oxygen. Unless you're going to tell me something amazing.
It's a synthetic layer, so it's a pixel matte basically.
So you've chosen the brighter bits or something like that.
Yeah, you chose arbitrarily some frequencies and you do math based on that.
Yeah.
I think that I did try the same video and it works very well, but it's a fake layer. It's not real oxygen.
Yeah. I mean, California
using that.
California Nebula is a lot of hydrogen anyway, isn't it? As I remember it.
Yeah.
It's super cool though. Well done, mate. Super cool. I love it. Alrighty. Anyone else want to ask any? Just say anything, or I'm just going to have to carry on looking though. I haven't got any definite choice. I think the Antilia 3 nanometer are good. I think maybe if someone had to if someone came to me second hand with a 3 nanometer Chroma or a 3 nanometer Astrodon.
We get 5 nanometer, to be honest with you.
What, for O3 and S2?
For especially HA.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that for HA. I'm gonna do the 5 or 6.
5, maybe 6 even. Yeah. And then 3 nanometer, you're still getting significant bandpass shift, even at like F4, F5. So you might still just want to expand that a little bit more, because the signal you're going to be getting, it's going to be lower contrast. But you're going to get like double the signal.
I'm not sure everyone's going to agree with you on that, Jimmy. I think people have found that having the narrower bandpass has really worked. How fast is your scope? You've got you're like F4 or something, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you had
what scope are you going to be using for this?
Well, actually 2. One is like an f5.4 reflector, and the other is going to be like whatever 5 times 0.7 is. 3.
Okay. So if you're going below f4, 3 nanometer, I think is going to be way too narrow. So I forget the exact figures, but I believe you're losing like 60% of your signal by going to 3 nanometer versus like.
Is that really? But I'm not.
It's pretty significant.
Okay, but I think these 3 nanometer filters are the people who make them say this is okay between 3 and above 3 actually.
You're talking about the Antlia filters?
I don't know about the Antlia filters, to be honest. I haven't actually looked them up.
I do personally have Antlias, and they are rated, quote unquote, down to F3, but there's still a significant bandpass shift. So you would need to get pre-shifted filters in order to actually get around some of that transmission loss.
So those pre-shifted filters, they've got a wider bandpass, haven't they?
Not necessarily. There's different manufacturing techniques that reduce the amount that bandpass shift impacts transmission.
What is it?
So like the Baader ones are differently manufactured.
So I was under the impression that when you go extremely narrow band when you're manufacturing these filters, it's actually the filter has a peak, right? And you want that peak to be right over your whatever it is. I can't. What is high 563.4 or whatever nanometers, something like whatever it is.
656 for hydrogen.
656.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah.
But that that peak is actually quite hard to center, and that some of them are just a little bit off to one side or the other. And when you start getting, and it's not such a big deal when you've got a 5 nanometer, 6 nanometer wide peak, yeah, it's fairly broad. That little shift isn't a big deal. But when you get narrower and narrower, that little shift actually can be fairly significant. Is that anything to do with what you're talking about? Are you talking about something else?
Kind of. So the way that these narrowband filters work is if the angle of incidence of the light cone is changed. So that happens when you go to faster focal ratios.
Yeah.
The transmission peak does shift on the filter.
Yeah.
So by the time you're at like F4 or F3 or whatever, the angle of incidence at the corners of the light are going to be completely shifted off the filter, and then you're only going to be getting light pollution instead. So you're actually going to be losing signal and only gaining light pollution. So, for instance, if you were to use like an F2 system with pretty narrow filters, you would actually get more signal to light pollution ratio.
I get you. So unfortunately, Hatman Jew has left. So he did a test with. He's actually gone and joined Weber on shooting NGC 7331. I don't, it's good call, I'd say. But he actually did a test with a 7 nanometer and 3 nanometer, and he found that he needed much less integration time with his 3 nanometer. But I'm curious to know what his F ratio was. In fact, why don't I just message him now? And
George just posted a really nice graph there.
Yeah. And this is an advice for anybody who wants to buy the L Extreme with any scope faster than f5.
Yeah.
Because they will be very, very disappointed.
Yeah, so if I could go back, since I did buy the Antlias, I probably would have bought something wider bandpass, even though I live in significant light pollution.
Really? Okay. What kind of Bortle level are you at?
Especially for hydrogen. So, what was that?
What kind of Bortle level are you at?
Like 8, 9.
Right.
I'm right in the middle of Denver, so.
Yeah.
So for the L Extreme filter, f4 is pretty much the highest you can get without losing a lot of the transmission.
And so, what's the full width on the L Extreme?
So I'm really interested in
7.
I'm really interested in finding out about the pure narrowband kind of filters, like from Antlia and Baader.
The problem's the same.
Yeah.
Once you start getting quicker and quicker, and the angle of incidence of the light means that you end up with a transmission fall off.
Yes, but sometimes these things are blown out of proportion. I'm sure it is a problem, but and I understand the logic of it completely. But I've had Hatmanju has done a test. He's way better with his 3 nanometers. I know that for sure.
So here's what you have to balance. So you're balancing the transmission of your the signal that you actually want. So the proper narrowband emission from the target. You're balancing that with the ambient background light pollution that's going to be passed through the filter. So it really depends on your scope. It depends on your setup. It depends on the filters. It depends on how they are or aren't pre-shifted. It depends on the manufacturing technique. It depends on a lot. So what I would personally do, if I could go back, is I would go for something a little bit wider, probably 5 nanometer, which is still very narrow, especially for H alpha, because there's a lot of galaxies that I just can't shoot. I just can't shoot H alpha in them, or effectively anyway.
So do you think it's possible that, so I'm guessing Astrodon says it's fine to use its 3 nanometer filter with f3. I haven't looked this up. If someone could, my scope's
with Astrodons and Chromas,
yeah,
there is a little bit more wiggle room for sure.
Yeah. So I wonder if that's one of those things that the clever, that's what one of the things you're paying for with those guys, is they've managed to work out a way of perhaps it's simply just the steepness of the sides of their bandpass curves, maybe. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, let's see. So what I would recommend, if you're getting like Astrodons, 3 nanometer sulfur and oxygen would be perfectly fine. That'd be great. But especially for H alpha, to include the nitrogen 2 bandpass as well.
Yeah, we did. We did discuss this earlier. So but with Antlia, you're not so sure with the fast scope about the 3 nanometers on O3 and S2. Is that right,
I
Jimmy?
think they claim they'll go to f3, but that is a claim.
What are you at?
Yeah.
What are you at? End of. What's your focal ratio?
F4.5 is my fastest.
Right.
Yeah, and so they claim effectivity down to f3, which doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Cool.
You know, so
maybe
it's something to look into.
Yeah.
Rory, there is a chap who's done a huge review of them. He's written a very good paper about it. I've just posted that link
awesome.
in the chat.
And
he compares a lot of the filters, right? And he also talks about the blue shift that happens when you get to faster optics. So do have a look at that. Some good info in there.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Maria. Thanks, everyone. I feel like other stuff's going on in the server now, and I have a lot of information to be going on with. So thank you very much. And just before I sign off, is there anyone else who's got anything else they particularly wanted to say? Anything at all, really? Before we wave bye-bye?
Good luck.
No? Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you for dropping in. And it might be it might be that we've actually managed to record this on a stream. You never know. On the Big Amateur Telescope YouTube channel. I'm going to find out.